أهلا بيكم في دروس الأحياء للصف الثاني ثانوي. Today's lecture will continue our discussion of the transport in human beings. So let's begin. Last time we studied we knew that circulation in the blood is via two routes, blood and circulations in the body via two routes, that is blood and lymph. And when studying blood, we discussed the structure of the heart and the arteries and the capillaries and the veins, and now we should know that there are three types of circulation in the body, and sometimes four. I'll tell you why. The pulmonary circulation, there is a close circulation between the heart and the lungs. The purpose of this circulation is to oxygenate blood, carry oxygen from the atmosphere. This is through the lung. This is called pulmonary circulation. The other circulation is systemic circulation, which is the distribution of the oxygenated blood to the body and back to the heart. This is the systemic circulation. And a special type of circulation called the portal circulation, which is the circulation between the GIT, gastrointestinal tract, and the liver, between the intestine, the stomach, intestine, and the liver. Because as I told you in nutrition, everything that is absorbed from food must pass through the liver. Okay? So let's discuss the pulmonary circulation. Pulmonary means lungs. It starts from the right ventricle. When the right ventricle contracts, the atrioventricular node, which is the valve between the right atrium and right ventricle, closes to prevent regurg of blood back into the right atrium. So the blood will find itself pushed in the pulmonary trunk with the valve open, of course. Pulmonary trunk divides into two main branches, one to the right lung and one to the left lung. And then it subdivides with the bifurcation, with the splitting of the trachea, with all the branches of the trachea, till it ends up, and getting smaller and smaller. Arteries, then arterioles, then capillary beds. Forms capillary beds with the venous side around the alveoli of the lung. Alveoli, why around the alveoli? Because the capillary bed will deliver its load of CO2 to the lung and attracts O2 to it to become oxygenated. So it becomes oxygenated inside the lungs and back to the heart again through pulmonary veins. Okay? Pulmonary veins empty their blood into the left atrium, and this will be the end of the pulmonary trip, and we will be left up with the systemic circulation. So again, blood from the right ventricle, not back to the right atrium because the AV valve is closed. So it rushes to the pulmonary trunk, pardon me, which divides into right and left main branches, then subdivides in each lung till it makes a capillary bed around the alveoli, and then exchange of CO2 and O2 happens, and the blood becomes oxygenated and back to the lung through the pulmonary veins here drawn in red, because I told you before the pulmonary veins carry oxygenated blood. And why they are called veins? Because their structure is veins. Back to the left atrium, and then from the left atrium through the open left AV valve to the left ventricle to start the systemic circulation. Okay? Systemic circulation, it starts in the left ventricle and ends in the right atrium. Blood, we have reached the oxygenated blood coming from the left atrium through the AV node, through the AV valve, the mitral valve, to the left ventricle. Then when the ventricle contracts, the valve closes to prevent backward regurgitation of blood to the left atrium, as we studied before. So the blood will find itself pushed through the opening guarded by the semilunar valve, the aortic valve, into the aorta. And from the aorta ascending and the arch and descending aorta, it distributes blood to all parts of the body. This is the major big vessel receiving oxygenated blood from the heart. This is the systemic circulation. Of course, the arteries will subdivide into smaller arterioles and capillaries, make capillary beds with the venous side. Now, venules start to collect after they are loaded with carbamino hemoglobin, and the blood in them becomes deoxygenated blood, and the veins gather together into larger and larger vessels, venules into veins, and so forth, till we reach the superior and inferior vena cava. The superior and inferior vena cava return all blood from the body back to the right atrium, and to start all over again the pulmonary circulation for the blood to get oxygenated, and then again the systemic circulation. By the way, when the ventricles contract, the right ventricle contracts at the same time with the left ventricle. So the two circulations are at the same time, happen at the same time. The pulmonary circulation is happening while the systemic circulation at the same time is happening, and so forth. Okay? Hepatic portal circulation. I told you before, any food, any kind of food, even the fanciest one, has toxic materials to our bodies. So anything absorbed from food must pass through the liver first. So from the villi, lacteal scary fat, soluble fat, after it's dissolved into the lymphatic system, and from it to the superior vena cava, while the amino acids and sugars, absorbed amino acid and sugars through the capillary bud in the villus, we studied the villus before, it's absorbed to these veins. This is the superior mesenteric, this is the this is the splenic vein, to form the portal vein. This is the portal vein. See, it takes all absorbed materials from the intestine to it. It's for the liver, because the portal vein, first of all, it's gathered from the intestine and takes branches also from the pancreas, drains also the stomach, and drains the spleen. Okay? After entering the liver, the portal vein starts to divide into tiny branches, forming capillaries at the end, where the blood carried out is worked upon by the liver to detoxify whatever it needs to be detoxified, or to excess food substances exceed the body needs to get rid of them or equalize them. So after the blood delivered all its absorbed material, it will be gathered again in a series of venules that will form the hepatic vein. So don't confuse the hepatic veins with the portal vein. The hepatic vein will empty into the inferior vena cava, and from it to the heart. Okay, this is the portal circulation because it's between two capillary beds, the capillary bed in the intestine and the capillary bed in the liver. Okay, We have another kind of portal circulation in the pituitary gland. You will study this later. Okay, so this is the hepatic portal circulation. I told you that it might be 4 types of circulation. That is the fetal circulation, but it's not in the book here because the fetus needs certain adjustments inside the womb to be able to survive in the mother's uterus. Okay. Now we'll talk about blood protecting itself from bleeding by clotting. Mechanism of blood clotting. Clots happen at sites of injuries, damaged sides of the intima of the vessels, any damaged sides, where the damaged cells and the platelets together they secrete a substance called thromboplastin. Thromboplastin. Plastin means the one that will form thrombin. Thromboplastin. In the presence of calcium ions, this thromboplastin and clotting blood factors, this thromboplastin acts on the inactive prothrombin to change it, to convert it into thrombin. Prothrombin is formed in the liver with the help of vitamin K. That's why with people with bleeding disorders, they sometimes need shots of vitamin K to enhance their clotting ability of the blood. After thrombin is formed, it acts on the inactive fibrinogen, which is a soluble protein in plasma, to convert it into fibrin. Now that's one is insoluble and will precipitate as a network C of fibrin, as you can see here. This is network of fibrin. What is it for? For the platelets and other cells to adhere to it and plug the site of injury. The site of injury. So again, what happens to form a blood clot? From the injured tissue and platelets, thromboplastin is formed in the presence of calcium ions and blood clotting factors. This thromboplastin will activate prothrombin into thrombin. Prothrombin, remember, it's formed in the liver with the use of vitamin K. Then thrombin, being active enzyme, will convert fibrinogen, which is soluble protein in the plasma, into the insoluble fibrin, and fibrin is the ones you see here. This is a network of fibrin where platelets and other blood cells adhere to and plug the site of injury. See that? Okay. Why doesn't blood clot inside blood vessels? Blood never clots inside the blood vessels because the intima or the lining the mucosa is smooth. That makes sure that the cells slide easily and smoothly without being interrupted, without adhering to the surfaces of the blood vessel. What else? Because there are traces of heparin inside the blood, which is secreted by the liver. Heparin prevents conversion of prothrombin to thrombin, so it stops this reaction. Prothrombin, I told you, by thromboplastin, calcium, and factors changes to thrombin. It inhibits. The heparin inhibits conversion of prothrombin to thrombin, so fibrinogen will not be activated to fibrin. Okay, the clot will not be formed. Okay, this is blood clotting. The lymphatic system, it's the last system, the other type of system for transport. It's a network of lymphatic capillaries all over the body, interrupted in some places by lymph nodes, and the biggest lymph node inside the body is the spleen. Okay, lymphatics collect remaining fluids in the capillary bed, capillary bed, the ones that the venules couldn't carry. So it takes excess fluid. That's why it's important. If obstructed, it will produce edema. edema يعني ارتشاح، انتفاخ. عارفين انتوا مثلا لما واحد بيشتغل بايده كتير ايديه تتنفخ، ليه؟ من التعب، يعني تحوش فيها فلويد، لان الليمف من التعب مش قادر يلاحق على انه يشيل الفلويد الزياده بعد الكابيلاري باد. ايه لازمه الليمف نودز في الطريق؟ لان الليمف نودز دي مكان تجمع الليمفوسايتس اللي تقدر تراب اي فورين بودي، سواء فيروس او بكتيريا او باراسايت، واكتس on it by means of the lymphatic cells اللي موجوده فيها، الوايت بلاد سيلز اللي موجوده فيها. الليمفاتكس كلها بتتجمع، بتصب بانبوبه واحده اسمها thoracic duct into the superior vena cava. Remember this: the superior vena cava receives all the lymphatics of the body. Okay, the lymph itself is contains nearly most of the plasma constituents and leukocytes, and special type of lymphocytes called the T lymphocytes, actually, that wander the body. Well, I hope you got the maximum benefit from this lecture, and thank you very much for watching.